Ladies and gentlemen, Seahawks fans of all ages, welcome back to 12 Talk Podcast. My name's Josh. This is Mitch on whichever side it goes. So I'm not sure what side my camera points. We're going to be talking to you today about the Seahawks loss to the Titans in Tennessee. We'll talk about the joint practices briefly as well. We'll be going through some positives, some negatives. If you've got any questions, you make sure you get them in. And then we'll get all those read out as well. But let's get into it. There we are. Back with a bang. Mitch, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, mate, really good. Catching up after not doing much sleeping this weekend. We obviously just did our 12 Talk podcast fantasy league draft this weekend for our best ball. Had loads of great other podcasters and members from our Discord, and Dan Vien's in there. We've got Bryce from the Hawk Zone Rundown. We've got Jonas Meister from the German Seahawkers, plus a whole bunch of members from our Discord. It's a great bunch. And we drafted before our preseason game. So we had everyone online, breached that time zone gap that way, which I thought was a nice idea. Yes, it's just been a bit of an American football fest this weekend, hasn't it? Which has been
it's been lovely. But do you know what got me was when we were drafting during the game, as soon as Mafe made a play, he got drafted, and then Derick Hall made a play, and then someone drafted him, and I was like, "Oh, you're taking my sleepers from Seattle here." The game. We'll get onto that in a minute, but I think we need to start with the joint practices.
Yes, the
joint practices have brought out some interesting storylines. It was nice to see the camaraderie between Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams still there with the squad.
That added some fire to it, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Especially when you see people like Spoon pick a ball off and then chase down Jamal Adams to hand him the ball. And also Spoon on the sideline telling Quandre Diggs to get his old off the field. That was quite funny as well. For me, the star of that whole thing, in fact, the stars, I think there were 4. Starts with Geno, just dropping dimes. You had DK Metcalf taking cornerbacks for an absolute ride. People trying to man cover DK. Don't do it. Just don't do it. JSN creating so much separation with his feet. And then more Bobo. J Bobo, baby.
He's looked unbelievable in joint practice.
Yeah, and I think it's indicative of how good he's looked by how little time he's had on the field during these preseason games.
Yeah, true. That's a really good point, because let's not forget that this time last year we were talking about an undrafted free agent fighting for a spot on the roster, and now he's in such a sort of elevated state that we daren't risk him in a preseason game. That's mad.
That is Jake Bobo. I think he showed us last preseason what he can do, and then we saw what he could do last season, and then all throughout training camp he was pulling off these miraculous catches, toe taps in the end zone, everything like that, and then he's just carried it on to the point where he is now cemented, I think, as wide receiver 4.
Yeah, and do you know what's really good about that? I hadn't really thought about that until now. When you mention it about the fact that he hasn't featured in preseason, but this is an entirely new coaching staff. So he came in with the old coaching staff and blew everyone away and earned that roster spot. A whole new set of coaches have come in and gone, yeah, okay, he's special, he's important, we can work with that. That's made life harder for the Derick Youngs and the Easop Winstons and the Laviska Chenaults, but it is great that a whole new bunch of coaches have seen the same things. Yeah, I mean the fans don't need convincing. we're all sold. I mean, more Bobo being chanted for a whole year now. Yeah, but yeah, no, that is really good to see. That is really good to see.
I think it was. I think it's the way we're seeing this team gel. I mean, we'll get into how it all looked in the game very shortly, but I think that the way training's gone at the moment, this preseason, the off-season training, I think it's really starting to show where our strengths are, and then there are some. I'm pretty sure we'll come across in our positives and negatives section, who are either shining when we weren't expecting them to, or are falling down the pecking order. With that, should we start talking about the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get straight into that.
So, as always, we advocate for the UK Seahawkers. We are both proud card-carrying members. We once again want to thank them for asking us to be their official podcast. You can join the UK Seahawkers for as little as £12 a year or £20 for a family, for a maximum of 4 in the same address. You will get some fantastic goodies. You get access to the social events. We've got a meet coming up next year in Glasgow. If any of our listeners or watchers know a good bar in Glasgow where we can all meet up, please hit us up, let us know, or let the UK Seahawkers know. 10% discount at the Seattle Pro Shop. Chance to win field passes in Seattle before games. The list is endless. And with the goodies, as we say, you get your fantastic wristband. You've got your patch as well. It's all throwback, your RFD card, and then you get your membership card to prove you're a card-carrying member. We also like to shout out our friends at the German Seahawkers. Big up Jonas, member of our fantasy league, who was I think there was some choice words thrown throughout that group chat last night when people were sniping picks. You can join them for €15. It's approximately £12.68 or $16.06. Access to the Seahawkers tailgate zone. Again, 10% pro shop. There's raffles and competitions. You can win things like signed footballs, and there's exclusive fan articles and discounts on their website, www.germanseahawkers.com. Put it through Google or your browser of choice, and you can just translate that to English. And I keep up to date on the majority of their stuff now. It's a nice read as well, especially if I'm away for work and I need something to pass the time. And if you've seen on our socials, we have our first podcast sponsor. We have teamed up with Wraith Energy. There you go, Mitch. Yeah, look at us color coordinated. Mitch with the blue, me with the green. So Wraith Energy is it's an energy drink that you can buy. If you're sick of buying cans like I was from Tesco's or wherever, give Wraith a go. It has your things like your caffeine, your taurine. It's got antioxidants, B and C vitamins, amino acids. It's zero sugar as well, and that is the big thing for me. This can be used as a pre-workout, as a livener if you're having a bit of a rough morning. If you're a gamer and you have all-night gaming sessions, or you're a UK NFL or European NFL fan who has to stay up till past midnight, sometimes 3 o'clock, to watch your team play, get one of these in you. It'll keep you going, and because there's no sugar, there is no sugar crash at the end. So I've been using it for a few months now, and I absolutely love it. The flavors are fantastic. My favorite is currently on the screen. You can buy it in tester pouches, or you can buy them in the tubs for the flavor you really like. I really like the blueberry lemonade. That's my personal favorite. But there's also flavors like Gamer's Bathwater, which I know Mitch quite likes as well.
That's not my flavor. My flavor is the Slayer's Mango, but which I think the Slayer's Mango is great for that sort of tropical, punchy kind of vibe. But yeah, Gamer's Bathwater does exist, which I think is hilarious.
And it doesn't taste like you'd expect it to. I think they're all the testers I've had so far have been absolutely fantastic. You can go on the website and buy bundles, just get the testers in. And if you enter our code 12talk, you'll get 10% off any order. There you go. Just give him back. But there you go. Wraith Energy, give them a try. It's wraithEnergy.com. Code 12talk at checkout, 10% off. Bosh. There you go. So let's get into the game. Our preseason review of the Seahawks versus the Titans. And I had to put on Sam Howell because he was one of my positives. And then I can't remember the rookie kicker's name for the Titans, but he was clutch. Was it a 58-yard field goal he knocked over.
He was outstanding. While our veteran overpaid kicker is missing sitters.
It's got like a boot with a triangle shape on top.
Yeah.
I think it's what we call a 50p foot, where it's like you hit it on top and you don't know which way it's going to go. It was, yeah. So I think there's probably going to be conversations about kickers in the off season after this season, depending on how he goes. Let's have a look. So the Seahawks fell 15 points to 16 to the Tennessee Titans, which was, in my opinion, pretty unprecedented, especially after everything that was going on during these camps, because I think the joint training camp showed the Seahawks were leaps and bounds ahead. When you look at the touchdowns we were scoring, the movement that we had, just looking at some of the videos that I've seen where you can see the shift in the offensive line, all the movement from the wide receivers and the tight ends, fantastic. And the amount of picks that we got as well. I'm pretty sure we had Jay Love, Witherspoon. There was a plethora of other ones as well. But let's go for the scoring breakdown. So first quarter, 6 points to zip. We had Sam Howell throwing a lovely ball to Aesop Winston Jr. After a brilliant drive, which included many good Kenny McIntosh runs. My boy. And the kick was missed. We then went on to score 2 field goals after that, was it? In the second quarter, to Tennessee's converted touchdown. Third quarter, bit of a damp squib. So no points scored. And then the fourth quarter, 3 points to the Seahawks and 9 to the Titans, which was going to lead us very nicely into our positives and negatives, because that fourth quarter, that second half, much like last week, is probably going to be in the negatives. So positives. Let's get into this. If you have got any comments, questions, let us know. We have a section at the end of this where we will flash them up on the screen. We will discuss them as well. And by all means, say what you want. Try and keep it clean, though, please. Mitch, would you like to start with your first positive?
Yeah, I'd like to point out how happy I am with our offensive scheme. And I know we haven't scored a touchdown in the second half, and I know we only had the 1 touchdown in the first half. However, you need to remember we've got third and fourth string out there. PJ Walker is not going to be, barring a catastrophe, he's not going to be a starting quarterback for us this year. And it only really fell off when he was out there. You know, when Howell got going, this scheme was it just felt perfect for him.
Yeah.
It felt perfect for him, and it also felt like no matter the talent level of the wide receivers, they could find a yard in this system. And I think once you put the caliber of JSN, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett into that, with Bobo, as we've mentioned, Fant in there as well, Ken Walker, I just think that teams are going to get, torn apart at times by this scheme. And it also feels it feels like a high performance race car that has a below average driver in it right now. We're not hitting the apex of the corners.
Yeah.
We're not getting up to full throttle on this offense with the personnel that are out there, but with the right personnel behind the wheel, I feel like this is just going to really, really motor. So I'm quite happy with the scheme, and I think actually that's probably one of the most difficult things to establish at this point. With so many new coaches, there's no continuity from previous years. It's all fresh. It's all been assembled. Teaching that and coaching that is probably one of the most difficult challenges of this offseason, offensively and defensively. It's not just an offense thing. This is across the board and special teams. But to see the offense looking so polished in its scheme, I think at this point is great.
Agreed. And that leads me very much on to my positive. Sam Howell's first half. There was one gentleman in our Discord who voiced his opinion quite clearly on Sam Howell because he threw away a ball to stop himself getting sacked. Now, if you look at Howell's numbers through this game, so we had Sam Howell was 11 from 14, 153 passing yards, so an average of 10.9. He had the one touchdown, no interceptions. I just want to stress that, no interceptions. So even that bad ball he threw away wasn't intercepted. He threw it into space where there was no one that could try and intercept it. He did take 2 sacks, but that was very much down to the offensive line or the tackles, let's say. But we'll get onto them in the negative, shall we? I thought Sam Howell really acquitted himself really so well in this, conversely to PJ Walker in that second half. I think, like you said, he has really got to grips with this offensive system. He shows a lot more patience with his reads. I think he's just really starting to come into his own now. He knows he's not going to play hero ball or throw the ball to like wide receivers in double coverage all the time and really take those chances. He knows he's going to get those chances. And with the running game we deployed as well, it's going to keep giving him those chances and the chance to shine more and more. So Sam Howell was my first positive. Mitch.
Nice.
Who's your second, or what's your second?
I think the fact that we're generating pressure with the scheme on defense rather than the personnel is a really good sign. I think apart from D Hall, where he's bull rushed and ripped to the outside and got home for that sack, there wasn't many pressures where I thought we're getting pressure here based off individual brilliance and moments. It's the scheme is breaking holes, putting people in great spots to get pressure. So I feel like with again, like I said, with the offense, getting the right personnel out there, we're going to start seeing it really look a lot different. But I think Mike Mack's system was always supposed to do that, to overload certain areas, to leave men over in certain spots, to bring unexpected blitz packages. And I feel like we're starting to see that a little bit. Did we see I think we saw a safety in the backfield nearly getting a sack. Was it Marquise Blair shooting gaps? I feel like we might see that a bit this year. Marquise Blair might be someone we see blitzing some gaps.
I think with his length, his violence, his speed, I think he's the type of safety you bring in to change the pace and really start blitzing. Because if you look at where this secondary can be used in blitz packages, you'll have someone like Spoon, Love. I don't see much as a blitzer, but someone like Marquise Blair, he has that length, speed, like I said, the violence to either drop back in coverage, absolutely smash someone running over the middle, or run through and get himself a sack, or at least heavy pressure on the quarterback. So yeah, I'm all about that. I'm still sticking with the individuals. For me, this is something you and I have spoken about. I think we spoke at length in our Discord. Derick Hall, and I'm just going to put in Jonas has just put it in here. Derick Hall seems to have taken the second-year jump. Solid performance again, which is important for a steady rush rotation. Couldn't agree more, Jonas. And that's what I was going to say. So we've had conversations of this perceived 1 and 2 of Nwosu, and then Mafe, and then Hall, Darryl Taylor. But at the moment, there you go. And Gary, agree, Jonas. Wonder if that's done to the new coach. I didn't even have a chance to read that. Wonder if that's done to the new coaches who seem to have improved a lot of players. And that's it. Coaching has been, I think it's proved this year what it can do with the right coaches, the right personnel. Derick Hall has taken his sophomore leap, much like Mafe did, second-year leap, and it has been glorious to watch. His long arm ball rush, I think, has just been fantastic. The fact that you're seeing him generate that pressure and become an absolute nuisance off the edge, that edge rotation now, whether it's going to be Nwosu and Mafe, Nwosu and Hall, Hall and Mafe. Oh, and let's not forget Draymond Jones as well, who they'll be double deploying there. I think it's really starting to look up for us, where we've got that depth in that rotation. And yeah, Derick Hall, he was our boy last year coming out the draft, and I am still a massive Derick Hall homer. I think he's going to be fantastic this year.
Yeah, I agree. We're starting to see. I feel like he had to work for everything last year. I think he was in a lot of unfavorable 1v1s with a higher caliber of player that than he'd been used to trying to beat. The defensive scheme, especially with the D line last year, was a botched kind of system. I remember Draymond Jones had tweeted something at some point, basically throwing a bit of shade at the defensive line. Not necessarily the coaching, but I think that the scheme was a bit confused, or his role in it was jumbled up. I think this year it's gonna look more complicated. I think actually in action it's going to be a bit more simplified, or at least your job snap to snap is going to be more
more simple for the players.
Simple for the players, yeah, and I think he will massively benefit from that.
Yeah,
I think we're starting to see it. Yeah,
I think, and I don't want to throw shade on Clint Hurt because he was a nice guy. Every interview I saw with him, he came across really well, really positive, friendly. I think the leap to defensive coordinator from D-line coach was a bit too much for him. But I think he had this idea that the interior of that line, everyone just needed to bulk up. They got Mike Morris to bulk up. Draymond bulked up. Just determined to play people on the interior when these players, as Mike Morris has showed, he was an absolute menace yesterday as well. Mike Mo, I think he's going to just launch. That's another one for the interior or the edge for this, this rotation. I can't wait for us to do our squad where we actually put the roster together. But yeah, I think it's just getting to a point now where players have got these defined roles. The coaching staff have actually looked at them and gone, your strength is this. You don't need to carry that extra 15 pounds. Drop that, get quicker, use your strengths, which during the season, I think will start paying dividends, especially as someone like I was going to say Mike McDaniel then. No, Coach Mike. There you go. Especially someone like Coach Mike is literally going to play team by team. He's not going to stick with that central philosophy of this is what we do. It's going to get to master tactician. Every single team we play, he's going to adjust for them, which means he'll have certain players that will play more against one team. But then for another team, if they've got good tackles, but they're slow, they're going to look for more speed and bend off the edge, which is someone like Mafe is going to come in. But if they've got really good tackles that are big and beefy, or really good tackles that are quick on their feet, but not the strongest, you're going to put someone like Draymond in, or you're going to put a Derick Hall in just to bull rush him and be an absolute menace. So, yeah, I'm excited by this. Thank you so much for everyone putting your comments in. We're going to have a lengthy section at the end, putting all these up for everyone. And anyone who's new tuning in, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It really helps the channel, and all these comments, all these questions that you're going to float. I can't get my words out today, honestly. That you're going to throw at us, we will put them up on the screen, right? So let's get
sorry, before we go too far, to anyone that's watching on YouTube right now, make sure you like the video, and also if you haven't subscribed, do subscribe, because we are on 99. You can be our 100th subscriber if you are to be that guy that clicks that right now. Costs you nothing, helps us loads. So go ahead and give that a click and be our 100th.
Yeah, and more amazing content and guests coming. The more people that are subscribing, hopefully the more people are going to start messaging us. And during the season, we're going to aim to try and have a different 12 on at near enough every episode. So you'll all get a chance to say your piece. You can all be part of this community that's growing, either in the Discord or by our followers on X on here. We've got the Insta. We've got the Facebook group as well. If you're on Facebook, go over there, find 12 Talk Podcast, give it a follow, interact, share. All helps us massively. Yeah. Shall we get on to the bit of our pod that we don't like? Negatives.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Let's put my Negatron hat on here. Negatives. Would you like me to start with this?
Yeah, you can go first if you want to.
Single solitary emote here coming up. Oh, second half. I'll caveat this because I know, and as Gary has said as well in one of the comments that we'll get to, these are third stringers. Completely get that. But also the teams we're playing at this point in the preseason are putting the same caliber up there. A couple of starters or second stringers maybe dotted in, but the majority are third stringers, UDFAs, practice squad players. But the last 2 games, we have not been able to do anything on offense or defense. I won't go too far into the defense, but offensively, I think the argument is now settled as to who QB2 is going to be. PJ Walker he looked lost in the pocket. He was too busy trying to find the open man to spot the pressure coming in or the pocket just being collapsed. Yeah, I'm over the PJ Walker experiment. If we can stash him on the practice squad and keep the coaching up with him, I wouldn't be opposed to it. He's won some NFL games, but based on this preseason, I don't see him garnering a roster spot as a second QB.
No, I think QB3 / practice squad is where he resides. I think that's pretty much settled now. And I know our next segment we're going to talk about any locks on the roster and anyone who's still competing for spots. So I don't want to talk about this too much at this point because we're going to come back to it. But I agree with you completely. I do ironically think though that if PJ Walker started the game with the second string O line rather than the thirds and fourths, and we'd seen Howell, with the thirds and fourths, we might have seen Howell throwing with a bit less time, having to do a bit more on every snap, and it might have looked a bit different. We are seeing, in my opinion, a lesser quarterback surrounded by lesser talent when we see our third and fourth quarters. So I do think
the issue, isn't it?
He's getting a bit less time. He is. Deal. Yeah, honestly, I think that does. And I don't want to defend him because I think he's been poor in both games. Genuinely, there's fundamental issues there that would mean I don't want him as a second quarterback unless Gino's gone down and that succession has kind of moved along one. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I don't think he's looking like something we want to see at all.
No, he's looking like practice squad, possibly. I don't think we'll retain a third QB. I think it's going to be a matter of trying to stash someone on the practice squad, and if Gino goes down, Howell starts, and we just try and pull someone out the gutter. But yeah, I think he's destined for practice squad or the UFL.
Yep.
Go on, Mr. Mitchell. What is your perspective?
This is going to surprise some people because I've typically defended this man, but the missed kick yesterday, not only has it cost us the game, it also is the second game in a row that we've seen a relatively regulation kick missed. It's one you definitely expect him to just automatically put through the posts. It's something that should be automatic with the money we're paying and the experience he has. He's a veteran on this team, and I know mistakes happen, and I know it's not an exact art, but it should be almost an exact art as a kicker in the league when it comes to field goals. Sorry, not field goals. When it comes to the extra point, he's making it look difficult, and I really, really hope that doesn't carry into the season. Also, off that point, I think because we are in transition this year, there you go, Gary agrees.
Gary,
I don't think we're going to be blowing many teams. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be blowing many teams away this year. But I think when our defensive scheme kicks in with the starters and really starts working, maybe halfway through the year, we might be quite reliant on pinching points here and there with kicks. I expect a lot of tight games, and if you're going to be in a lot of tight games, you want a reliable kicker. We're going to need him. So,
yeah, looks like we'll be scouting a lot of college kickers then over the season. Me and you.
I wouldn't hate it.
I wouldn't get a rookie in there to really smooth over the draft capital in that room as well. Is it my next negative? It is. And I'm just going to throw one thing up here that Gary is put. I thought Jarrell had another good game. Completely agree, Gary. Just a pity Stone Forsyth didn't, and neither did Curtis McClendon. That the one good thing that Stone Forsyth managed to do was recover the fumble after he'd allowed the sack, because he was pushed back into McIntosh's foot, where he slipped, where he then tumbled over, allowed the defender through, and then had to dive, pounce like a big old cat onto that ball, which kind of covered his tracks. But I thought straight from the off, he just looks in trouble. I think McClendon Curtis, it just seems to be a training camp stud, but you put him in an actual game scenario and he just gets bullied every time. I'm starting to have some concerns over our backup tackles, because if we've got Cross, they're singing his praises, saying that he has become the alpha male of that O-line now, which I'd love to see, especially for how high we drafted him. Abe Lucas, we still don't know, which means George Fant could be the starting right tackle, which I'm not mad about. A lot of experience there on the O-line. I just hope that he's still got the feet to be able to move and keep up with some of these electric edge rushers we're going to be facing. But behind that, Mike Gerald might be the the one who's bringing it up, and he's come from a D2 school. As Mitch has said previously, he has historically one of the best combine results for a tackle ever from his measurables. But that's still a scary prospect that you're going to throw him into the deep end if someone goes down. So for me, tackles, it's still a negative, and it's something that it really shouldn't be.
I agree. And you mentioned about McClendon Curtis being like a stud in camp, but on game day just looks lost. I think for quite a long time we've invested a little bit into the O-line here and there. We've never sort of flooded it with talent like we have this year. There's been a massive influx of talent, and a lot of it through undrafted free agency as well, and late round picks, Satawa Lamea and players like that as well as early picks like Haynes. So it's not, with the way we were addressing our O-line before. McClendon Curtis is a 6'8" monster of a man. He was a moldable lump of clay that they really wanted to keep on the roster and work with.
Positional versatility as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's got that versatility as well. There was enough there for him to be worth keeping around. Now that we've changed tack and we've gone offensive line by committee and just pumped all this talent in, and then we're going to boil it down and some aren't going to make the cut. Suddenly we've got a lot of project tackles, and a lot of them project a lot higher than he does.
Yeah.
So for me, in my opinion, so he might fall casualty to that. I think it's got harder to just hang on to this roster now if you're an offensive lineman.
I know we're in the negative section, but I'm just going to put a positive spin on it because that's how my brain works. I thought Bradford and Haynes starting at right and left guard were fantastic.
The interior of the O-line has been really good, genuinely. And I don't know if it's because the third and fourth string, Forsyth isn't a third or fourth string. Technically, he's left tackle number 2, which is awful to think about.
Terrifying.
Although Fant can play both sides, so if we've got a fit Abe Lucas, suddenly we do get that versatility that provides depth. But our interior has been good. The bookends have made them look better. So get some starting tackles in there, and then we've got real depth to the center of that line as well. Don't forget, we haven't seen Connor Williams yet either.
I know. How exciting!
It's so good. How nice is that to feel confident about our O-line now?
I think there was a few occasions yesterday where I think Olu got bullied a little bit, but there were few and far between. And I think a lot of that was him trying to just decide or decipher what was happening either side of him. We may have turned a blind eye, but apart from that, I thought Olu did well as well.
Yeah, he did an exceptional job of moving people to create running lanes, and the really important thing about that is that's one of the things that's highlighted a lot as his problem. he's this highly intelligent, smaller center that struggles to maul and quickly get up into people's, under people's pads and move them and get that quick yard of movement, or not even a yard, sorry. It could be inches could work if you seal off a player, the right direction and create that channel. He struggles to do that. So the fact that he was doing that so well yesterday, it kind of, if I was a coach, I'd be looking at that going, well, okay, he can do it. So now it's about consistency, and so I think that was really important. It was a really important game for him, I think.
Especially now he gets to have a season learning behind someone like Connor Williams as well, who's a top 5 interior lineman in the league.
That's the best centre we've had on this roster since Max Unger.
Yeah.
Categorically.
It only took us over 10 years to do that, but never mind. Mitch, your last negative before we hit the viewers' comments.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a U here. I'm gonna talk about missed tackles. It's I
was trying to steer away from it.
No, well, here we go. I'll drag you back. It's a bit frustrating because last week it was a surprise how good it was, and this week there's a player I'm going to talk about when we get into the next section, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. But my negative is just sloppiness. I think it doesn't even need to necessarily be tackling, actually, just sloppiness with some of the guys that really should be trying to do the fundamentals a bit better to try and make the roster. There are a few corners down at the bottom of the depth chart that drafted or undrafted or perennial practice squad members. Funnily enough, some of the corners that we drafted are looking a lot less polished than Ty Okada at the moment. He is laying the smackdown week after week, and his tackling technique has been so stellar. Yet there are corners that we've drafted that are looking far less polished. So yeah, that's the negative for me.
Glad you mentioned my boy Ty Okada. Should we get off the negatives? Oh, well, kind of onto another negative. So usually we'd go to your questions. We'll get to that very shortly, everyone. But we just wanted to quickly go through after these first 2 games. Who is on the bubble?
Yeah.
As you alluded to some people there, do you want to start, Mitch?
Yeah, I can do. I think there's a few rooms. I'm going to quickly suggest some rooms that I think are settled, and you tell me if there's a candidate there that you think could wheedle his way in and make it less settled, right? So, quarterback room, I think, is the most settled room.
Yep.
I think after this game, the running back room is now settled.
Yeah. So,
I didn't feel like this after the first preseason game. I do now. I'll say that.
The way McIntosh, and we all know that I love McIntosh. The way McIntosh played this game is really probably going to cast a seed of doubt for a lot of the offensive coaching staff and Coach Mike. But the fact that Helani isn't getting a lot of snaps means maybe they like him a bit more and don't want him to get injured if they're going to use him as RB3 during the season. But then McIntosh has shown you what else you want from an RB3, which is your pass catching in the flats, breaking through the middle, having that step to be able to break out. The catch he bought, the catch he brought in, and that step was absolutely filthy. Like it was the longest sidestep I've seen in a long time. Like full extension of the leg, sent the defender the complete wrong way, and then managed to get it for a first down. I think it was that RB3. I think that's going to be the point to watch, especially in the next game.
I take your point completely. I think the lack of snaps for Helani shows that they probably don't need to see much more from him.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I think that performance yesterday was so good from McIntosh. And so rounded as well. I think the scenarios they gave him the ball in, the way he executed, the range of skills he showed, that to me feels like the game's slowing down for him a bit now. I think because he didn't get a full preseason last year because he was injured in the preseason game, the game at Lumen, right? So he didn't get the preseason last year and got back right at the end of the year and didn't get any real meaningful snaps. So he's a year behind where he should be, and I feel like the game's slowing down from a bit now. And I think once you see running backs with the confidence to shake a player and attack the space that it creates, and have that fully engage their field vision and start, tunneling through the secondaries, that speaks to someone that's got a bit of confidence behind them.
He only had one run that I just put my head in my hands, but that was more.
It's one of his first two, probably, because his first two went for 2 yards.
It was the run where the pocket just completely collapsed on him, and he ended up running into our sort of guard and tackle. But there was nothing he could do about that. The pace in which he hit people, I thought, oh, I'd hate to be the back of any of those players. But yeah, so there you go. That's the running back room. Keep going.
Yeah. So I think the defensive line room is pretty much boxed off. The defensive line in general, and if we take edge rushers or outside linebackers out of that, because I think there's a discussion to be had there. O-line, there's a number of players there that we still need to shake out. Linebacker, Tyrese Knight solidified himself after the last night. Maybe. I think he's locked. I think he's locked now.
I think it's going to be. This season might be an up and down season for him. It's his rookie season. He's going to be using a lot of his natural athletic abilities, and it's going to take him time for the game to slow down. I read a post earlier about him having pretty much identical measurables to Roquan Smith. And I thought, there's worse people to have measurables with.
Yeah,
in common.
Yeah,
but yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see the Dotson Baker tandem to start with a sprinkling of Knight, but midway through the season, as Knight gets more and more attuned to the league, we're just going to see more and more of him making big plays and just shooting like a missile to wherever that ball goes. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I thought yesterday he flashed fantastic technique and instincts.
Yeah,
he seems to capitalize and sniff things out really quickly, and that reminds me a little bit of KJ Wright. KJ Wright was always he was onto things. He sniffed them out real quick. He was sideline to sideline. He could do pretty much everything you needed a linebacker to do. But he was always a complement to a sort of static middle linebacker, which is probably what we expected him to be first and foremost, right? That when we drafted him. So I think I'm seeing more versatility from him in that respect as well. Like I see him doing things that I didn't think he would really be doing really well, which Mike Mack will love. If your middle linebacker can line up in multiple spots and do different things, that's great for him.
I can imagine Mike Mack using him as well as a blitzer.
Yes,
because that speed coming through a gap, oh my word! But yeah, I agree with you there.
Nice. So we've talked. Anyone else? Linebacker Easton Gibbs, maybe. Easton Gibbs.
He missed a couple of tackles yesterday. He did make one good recovery after actually letting the player past him. But he could be maybe. But then with this, practice squad. But I think with the way that all of the positions are going to shift from the linebacker back in that secondary, you can probably get away with carrying 3 linebackers and then having safeties that could move into that spot. We were saying Marquise Blair. You could have him playing as a third safety, moving into a linebacker spot for coverage or just hitting anyone that moves across the middle of the field.
Mike Morris and Boye Mafe played middle linebacker for some snaps as well. Well, started in that position. I don't think they're playing middle linebacker, but they lined up as middle linebacker. And then
that's where the wealth is, though, isn't it? When you look at the wealth and the game changes we've got there, if you're going to have middle linebackers and think, right, we've got 3 that are legitimate possibilities to play, who else could we have to sort of draft in behind them? You use your edge rushers, you use your outside linebackers and say, look, play in the middle for a couple of snaps and then we'll move you again. And then it just creates all that confusion, which is what this season's going to be about. So, agreed.
Let's talk about the safety room then. We've not seen Rayshawn Jenkins yet properly. Well, we saw him in the first game, but for a very limited period of time, I think. I don't think we saw him at all yesterday.
He was on the sideline in a jersey, but no pads.
Yeah, correct. That's what I saw. Okay. I think the Rayshon Jenkins, Julian Love thing is locked in.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a Kobe Bryant, Jerick Reed, who will probably start on pup. Marquise Blair. Anyone else in that safety?
Kayvon Wallace,
Kayvon Wallace. Ty Carter. Okay, so we're talking about Ty Carter as defensive back, like versatile defensive back.
Yeah, basically defensive back weapon. Yeah, inside, outside. Ty Carter, I think, has just shone throughout these two preseason games. He, every time you put on a highlight, it's either him making an interception or a huge hit, and not a lot gets past him. I think it's going to be a big battle for those spots there. I think Kobe Bryant's done really well. We've said it for a long time. He's a very cerebral player. Now he's put the mass on. He's actually looking like a safety. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be horrible for him to miss out. But yeah, I think that room, I think Kayvon Wallace is the one that I'm looking at and thinking, how much do they like you?
Yeah, I can't remember his contract and how much of it was guaranteed. If Jonas, if you're still watching, Jonas feels like he probably would know. I know he's got his connections to over the cap, and he probably knows how much guaranteed money Kayvon Wallace has, but I'm not sure. Kayvon Wallace is the things that Kayvon Wallace will do well are things we're seeing a lot of other players do well. So the question for me is, does Kayvon Wallace's skill set, is it as rounded as some of the other guys? Because I've always felt like Kayvon Wallace isn't really. I mean, he's a guy who doesn't even lock down his own position. Like the fact that he just hasn't specialized in a position properly in his time in the league.
Well,
probably
Kayvon Wallace, I can tell you, he signed a 1-year, $1.5 million contract, which included 205,000 signing bonus, 205,000 guaranteed.
Okay, I could see that being very cuttable.
Mm-hmm.
That's a prove it thing. Yeah, I think he could. Yeah, there you go. Jonas Meister straight in. What do you think, Jonas? Possible cut candidate there? I feel like he's probably on the outside of the bubble looking in, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him feature a lot against the Browns to try and
prove you deserve to be on this. Because if you see someone like Kobe Bryant, who doesn't get many snaps, and it's mainly Kayvon Wallace, that shows that the coaching staff like Kobe, and Kayvon has to prove that he deserves a safety spot.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Marquise Blair, with him coming into camp so late, has a lot to prove to this coaching staff. And I think Kayvon Wallace has a lot to prove as well. So maybe those two are currently head-to-head. Maybe that is the showdown there.
I think so. I think Jerick Reed will start on the pup, and then we might be able to sneak him onto the practice squad, because with the injuries had, I don't think anyone's going to come swooping in to pick him up. Although his contract is minimal because he was a 7th round rookie now. I'll come back to you. But yeah, for me, O-line tackles. Now we've had multiple. So let's start with Richard Blake. Thank you very much, Richard. Forsyth doesn't make the roster for me, and Gary Swain. Forsyth is gone. He's put on his backside by a linebacker. Lucky he recovered the fumble. Exactly what I said. The general consensus, and this is something that we've said as well, and I hate saying it because, like I said last week, I had such high hopes for him coming out of college. He's just not got it in him to be an NFL tackle. Whether it's right, we tried it right and left last year, and I just think he showed up on both.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as I said, we've kind of flooded that room now, and we're boiling it down to starting quality and high upside. And he is neither starting quality and high upside. We've seen the floor and the ceiling, I think, now with Forsyth, and they're very close together. I don't think there's an awful lot left to be found out with him, really, to be honest, which is sad because when you draft someone and you get all the way through their contract and they've never really realized potential for you, that is a shame. But if that's the NFL, the average term in the NFL is now 3.5 years, right? I think so.
Yeah, that's it. That's your proving ground, isn't it? 3.5 years. If you're not cut out, then off to the UFL or off to some dumpster fire franchise who's desperate for a backup or a practice squad player. That's it.
Yeah.
And there you go. Jonas has just come in with the Kayvon. You can cut Kayvon with 205,000 dead money and save 1.3 million. Safety with Love, Jenkins, Bryant, Okada isn't that bad. Plus Reed coming off the pup soon as well. Basically, exactly what we said. Jonas, we're on the same wavelength. This is why you are one of our distinguished guests, members of the Discord. But yeah, with that, so I can't really think of anyone else. Wide receivers. So I think
and corners, I think as well.
And corners. Yeah. So very quickly then, wide receivers. We're settled on the first four. So we've got DK, JSN, Lockett, Bobo.
Yeah,
JSN and Lockett interchangeable, but I think they'll swap midway through.
Chenault is locked in now for me.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree. I think then you got to look at people like Aesop Winston, Derick Young,
Cody
both
White
on the bubble. Cody White, all on the bubble. Cody White will get stashed back on the practice squad. Winston might also get put on the practice squad. Derick Young, it depends if they see value in him as a special teams player, returner, fullback.
And we haven't seen much Hatton, actually, which is a shame. But then from what we've seen of the sort of outside, the wide receivers that are on the outside of that bubble, the ones we have seen, they really have excelled. Like, there's not been any high profile drops. There's not been, honestly, they've been really
movement. Yeah.
They've been really, really good. Body control, like we've seen some toe drag. We've seen, oh man, honestly, so impressed.
Let's talk tight ends quickly before we get on to cornerbacks.
Oh yeah,
tight end room. So
yeah,
we had Maybury opening up holes as a blocker. We had
Brady Russell,
who turned up in a chef's kiss fit yesterday in one of the most hideous plaid shirts that I've seen, and I love a plaid shirt, and dungarees. What a guy. But he has to be firmly in there now as a prospect for tight end 3, because you're going to look at Brown was carted off yesterday, so we don't know what's happening with Brown. We're waiting to hear that report. So you're going to have Fant, possibly Brown, Brady Russell, but then you've got Maybury, Westover, Barner.
Yeah, Barner took his first Seahawks reception yesterday for 17, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's played a lot in these preseason games, but they've just relied on him to just be a workhorse, facilitating the run game, blocking. Yeah. That says a lot to me. They've obviously, the fact that we have not heard his name mentioned as well probably means that he's doing quite a good job there. So maybe I think he might have become a fundamental, especially if Farrah Brown's foot injury does require him to miss time. I think AJ Barner just kind of stays in and slots in and does the dirty work.
I think
Brady Russell's just fun, isn't he? I think he's just got an element of fun about him that I really like. So
always smiling, even when that catch was ruled out of bounds, he was still like laughing about it. He seems to be one of those locker room presence guys who's actually just a really good player and a good guy. So I'd be happy to see him as tight end 3, because he seems to be a jack of all trades. He can line up a fullback, he'll block. He's a willing like receiver as well, and he's got good hands. I'd be keeping an eye on that. But last one then before we get onto the comments. So corners.
DJ James had the all-time worst game I've seen from a drafted corner in a preseason game. Genuinely all-time bad for me.
I actually wrote a note about this.
Did you? What was your note?
Let's have a look. DJ James had a howler during one drive in the back of the third. Yeah, and it was mainly down to two penalties, missed tackles constantly,
There was
just out of
there was a
position.
particularly bad face mask.
Yeah,
that was got a third down as well.
yeah. I think he's got a lot to prove in this next game. Put it that way.
Yeah. And I don't think, and I'm not saying it's an all-time bad game. I'm not saying that I think he's not going to make the roster now because on the back of one game. I think he's done enough in camp from the reports to say that the coaches might be quite high on him. But I do think, as it stands, we try to get him onto the practice squad, and potentially he gets taken from there. So his status in the Pacific Northwest is very much up in the air. On the flip of that, Nehemiah Pritchett did quite well. Although he did miss that interception opportunity where the ball kind of went through a crowd and then he was diving full stretch on the left sideline, narrowly missed out there. That would have been really good for his confidence to take a diving interception like that. But
the cornerback room, I think we kind of know who's starting, who's where. I think Trey Brown is 100% on this team. It's a contract year, so they're going to get the best out of him anyway. So it's going to be Spoon, Woolen, Brown. I feel a bit bad for Mike Jack at the moment because he's unavailable, which means that he may get pushed down or out. I think Pritchett is on the roster because they'll look at him and go, project piece, we can definitely mold you. Who else we're looking at?
We've mentioned Ty Carter in the safety room.
Boykin as well. He's no practice squad or cut. Ty Carter, who is, like you said, is going to be that safety cornerback, do it all. Yeah, it's going to be exciting when we use the German Seahawkers roster builder. If anyone hasn't seen that, go to the German Seahawkers website. Again, translate to English if you don't speak German, and they have a roster builder there where you can actually pick your preferred 53 man. We went through it previously with Bryce at the Hawk Zone Rundown, and we'll be doing our own episode on it. But yeah, that's that. Should we get onto the comments? Come on,
let's do it.
Let's do it. So your questions and comments. I'm going to start right at the top. So Gary said wide receivers: Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, Derick Young, and Chenault for me. No Bobo, Gary. Oh.
I hope that's a mistake, Gary.
Yeah, this typo. It's fine. We've got Jonas coming in with his first one. Bad tackling, maddening flags, and uninspired offense. The second half of the Titans game gave me 2003 flashbacks. I agree.
The thing is, there's no Derick Hall. There's no God, I've forgotten his name already. He's only just left there, and I've forgotten his name already. Running back, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
When Derrick Henry's breaking tackles, you kind of feel sorry for the backs. When it's a third string running back running riot, I have more of an issue with it.
And Gary did realise he missed Bobo out. He's done it on purpose. Shocking, Gary. That's it. Right, and then we've got Richard coming in saying the sheer amount of flags frustrated the hell out of me. Agreed. I don't think it's necessary in a preseason game, especially for some of the infringements that were being called. But then there were some that weren't called either, like a lot of holding on our pass rushes that wasn't called. Gary, it's not that bad, Jonas. It was third string, so he's okay. Most of those players won't be on the roster. That's exactly what we've said. Let's have a look. Just to expand on Richard's earlier one, he really liked the performance of Hall and McIntosh, which we've mentioned. Gary agrees with the Tyrese Knight had another good game. A middle linebacker. It was good to see the running game getting not only yards but first downs. Completely agree. And then Richard again. Howell was a lot better. A nice throw for a TD.
I'm going to mention just a special shout out for Howell there. I know you've already talked about it, but that 36-second spell he had at the end of the first half.
With the 3 timeouts as well.
honestly, it was chef's kiss. I know it didn't result in a touchdown, but he didn't reach to get that touchdown either. He didn't go out there and think, "Oh, I've got 36 seconds. Let's just take the home run, chance, throw it into traffic." He just kept going to the sideline. I think he used his legs at one point as well, potentially. I can't remember exactly the
He had a nice
sequencing.
scamper for, I think it was like 11 yards or something.
Yeah,
It was
honestly,
he just took what the
he
defense
applied
gave.
himself perfectly. Yeah.
Jonas agrees. As a backup QB, Sam Howell is pretty much all you can ask for. Imagine having a starter named Danny Dimes who throws a pick six to avoid a sack safety in the end zone. Yeah, just could you imagine if he becomes a free agent and then John Schneider goes, "I like Danny Dimes." I think there would be protests in the streets of Seattle.
Agree.
Gary has said that the coaches have done a great job to date. Couldn't agree more. Let's have a look. God, there's so many comments. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been brilliant. We won't be able to get through them all because some of them are just people agreeing. Here we go. Jonas, I think the starters, Rookie Murphy, and rotational players like Morris and Hall, Mike Mack is pretty happy with his D-line, which is the most important unit in this scheme. And Gary, what I came away from hearing the coaches speak during camp, they all said that they're looking at players' strengths and how to maximize them rather than fit them into their scheme. So refreshing. Couldn't agree more. Cool. Thank you, everyone, so much. I'm having trouble getting through all these. There's the two. Forsyth has gone. We know that one. And this one from Jonas. Sentiment at UW was that the O-line was the best in college because they had 5-star prospects, but the otherworldly coaching of Scott Huff. So with him on the staff, he's less worried about the O-line. I completely agree. And Gary's be interesting to see what Huff can do. I heard that he'll stop a drill if he's not happy and go through with the player what they've done wrong to correct them. That is fantastic coaching. You have some coaches that will let a drill go all the way through and then pick it apart at the end. But by that point, speaking from an athlete and a coach's point of view, your brain is beyond what's happened. You've completed that drill. No one's pulled you up on a whistle. You're like, right, that was fine. But then for someone to come back and go, actually, let's rewind this live action, no videotape to show you exactly what was wrong. If it's wrong, correct it there and then. Restart, reset, and go. That's fantastic coaching, in my opinion.
It's like training your dog. Give them a pat on the head and a treat when they do something right. No point doing it 10 minutes after they don't know what they did right. It's the same thing, same principle.
Richard's come in and said thoughts on Halani too. Lack of snaps makes me think that he's slightly ahead of McIntosh at the moment. And then Jonas, Seahawks take 4 running backs in the 53. Kenny is going to return kicks as well, oppositional. Now, I would be happy with that.
Yeah, me too. I think that's the way it shook out. We thought it might be the way that it all shakes out, but there were contenders. I think that's what we're now seeing as the favourites in those roles.
And then the last one from Gary. Happy with what Grubb has shown play calling to date. Couldn't agree more. I think Grubb is really starting to show his hand now at what he wants to do. That run game was strong. He's moving all of his receivers around. There's so much motion pre-snap as well, where you're seeing we're going from a spread to them then in a 3-man bunch with a tight end moving out. It's even the running backs. We can go from single running back into an empty set, and you can just see the defense going, well, what's happening here? It's been so good to see. But with that, Mitch, that is the end of our live podcast for today.
Yeah, that's been good though.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in, put your comments in. By all means, if you haven't already, like, subscribe. You can be that 100th man, or if you want to be the 112th man, would appreciate that too. 212th would be even better. Share, by all means, tell your friends who are Seahawks fans. If they're not Seahawks fans, but the UK NFL fans, tell them about the Wraith deal as well, because they're going to be staying up till Lord knows what o'clock, like the rest of us. And there you go. At Wraith Energy, you go to wraithEnergy.com, use code 12talk, or if you've got us on our socials, I'll be posting the link on there. We can use that straight away. Really helps the pod. And like I said, everything that comes to us gets put back into the pod so we can keep it growing and sort of keep adding new bits to this as well. For those of you that are watching and listening, join the Discord if you haven't. King of the Discord is here. Am I pointing the right way?
Yeah, first time.
Oh, I look at this. I'm getting used to it now. King of the Discord's here. He, just to sort of encapsulate what we're all about, we're about the positivity. We want a good group of people there that aren't just going to shout in caps all the time about how rubbish things are. Mitch did boot someone yesterday, and I was very proud of him for doing so, because the gentleman, if you are listening, if you want to come back in, by all means, you can ask. And the one thing we ask is try and keep it positive. We want to keep it as a really friendly culture in there and environment. It's a safe space for people. That's what we're all about here. Join the Discord. It is the pinned post, tweet, whatever it is, on X. Have we got past calling it Twitter now?
I don't know. That was, maybe I'm over it. Am I over it?
I don't know. I don't get a twitch when I mentioned it now, so we must be over it. But yeah, from me, from Mitch, look, I'm pointing the right way. Look,
we've progressed.
We have. We're constantly building, just stacking days, stacking pods. That's what we do. If you want to appear on the 12 Talk podcast, get into our Discord. You can drop us a DM. You can send us an email. The email address will be in the description info thing below. We would love to have you on, especially during the season. The more 12s that come on this, the bigger the community grows, and this is what we're about. Special guests are a cool thing for pods, but 12s want to talk about the Seahawks, and that's what the 12 Talk podcast is all about. We're by 12s, for 12s, with 12s, and we want you to be the 12s. So, with that, Mitch, shall we finish with a hearty go Hawks, and let's hope that next week is much better.
Yes, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.